So it's good to be here and good to see you all here. Today I'm gonna talk a little bit about the IT market in Brazil. And as you all know, my name is Pedro, and I'm from Belo Horizonte, which is the southeast part of Brazil. Yes, you can go down, Rosie, please. So before I start, just an icebreaker. What do you know about Brazil? It just like affect you or something. What do you know, Alana, about Brazil?
Oh. About country or
Yeah,
about
in general, it's just
It
an
is very warm
icebreaker.
country. It is
Yeah.
a hot
near
country.
ocean?
You're right.
It is a very huge country in Latin America.
Exactly. And you?
It's a country with a great football culture.
Yeah, good. But
You know a lot of things, but not about IT.
yeah, so we will see about this now. So
A
Brazil is
little
not
bit criminal
Brazil is
country.
not, yeah, unfortunately some parts, yeah, this is Rio and it's really beautiful, the ocean and the sea. But now we are going to talk about the IT market, not the fun part. Yeah. So this is our agenda. So first of all, I'm gonna make a quick introduction about the Brazilian economy and the IT market. Later, you talk about how Brazil compares with other countries in the IT industry, segment of services and software development in Brazil, what we do, how we do, the definition and benefits of outsourcing in Brazil, forecast for the future of the IT market, and finally we'll end with challenges and opportunities in entering the Brazilian IT market. Yeah, so a quick overview about the Brazilian economy. We are the eighth world's largest economy in the world. We have a nominal GDP of $2,000 trillion. And we also have the eighth largest economy by purchasing power parity, and we are the largest economy in Latin America and the second largest in the whole America. So we're just behind the USA, and we are in front of Canada. So yeah, so our economy is characterized by a mixed economy that relies on import substitution to achieve economic growth. And the services sector is the largest component of our GDP. It represents 67%, and it's followed by the industrial sector, cars, and all this stuff, which is 27.5%. And agriculture. Agriculture represents 5.5% of our GDP. Talking about the IT market, our IT market is considered the seventh largest in the world, with a positive outlook for 2018 this year, with a project investments of $74 billion. And the IT Brazilian market includes hardware, software, services, and IT exports. All of these moved $39.6 billion in 2016, and it represents 2.1% of our GDP. Here is the distribution about our production in Brazil in the IT market. So here we have the software, the services, and the hardware. The hardware is our biggest part of development. We can see here, which is 51%, half of the pie, followed by services and then software. Basically, we produce for our own domestic market, but we also export. But it's a little bit. The total production for domestic market is $38 billion, and we export just $1 billion, so it's not so much. And the total market is $39.5 billion. Yes. So talking about specifically about the software and the services, leaving behind the hardware part. We produced $8.6 million in the software services. In the software and the services, we produce $10,000 billion. Yes. And how do we compare to the world? This is just numbers, but we can compare with the world. So the global software and service markets, not including hardware segment and exportation, reached $1,000 trillion in 2016, and Brazil had the 9th position in the world ranking with a domestic market of approximately $19 million. So we have like a table here, and this table shows how we compare to the world. We are like, the USA is the biggest market, represents almost 0.5% of the whole world. It's followed by the UK, Japan, Germany, France, China. China is up front of us, Canada, Australia, and here we are, Brazil. We are ahead of Netherlands, Italy, Spain, Switzerland, and this is the other parts of the world. So we represent 1.7%, and we have the 9th position. The number of companies involved in the software and the IT services sector in Brazil, we had in 2016, which was the most recent data that I found, we had 15,000 companies, almost 16. They operate in the software and the services industry, with about half of them devoted to distribution and marketing. So development and production is 31%, distribution and market is 40%, and services is 28%. If we consider only the companies engaged in development and production, the total number is almost $5,000, and this can be divided by size as follows. Most of them are micro and small companies, which represent almost 100%, but we have also medium and large companies. But the biggest part is here, micro and small companies. Service and software development segments in Brazil. So this is how we distribute our production, and the outsourcing is the main activity in the segment of services of the IT Brazilian market. So we can see here the services Brazilian market segment. Outsourcing is 40% of the total market, followed by services, system integration, consultation and planning, tailor-made software training, service export is just a little bit, and forage development, almost nothing. Yeah, our biggest part is here, outsourcing. Application development is the main activity in the segment of software of the IT Brazilian market. So basically, most developed applications, 44%, followed by development environments, infrastructure and security is also a huge part, and the domestic production for export, which is just 2%.
1 second, so you say applications are most popular all around the world, so, and this is something that we are good at, and this is our specialization, so we should most probably go with offering applications like all around the world.
Yeah.
And development environments, what is it? It's
to be honest, I don't know exactly what it is, but I guess it's just development, for example, for computers, I mean, Windows, maybe something like that, applications.
Like
for
platforms, like
platforms, exactly. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but I guess what it is, I can search and then send to you.
Maybe like developing Magento itself, the core of Magento, developing like core, maybe, but this is also a guess.
But security is the trend for this year and for the next year. So infrastructure and security, specifically in Brazil, is not the biggest part, but it's a trend. We will see it later. So outsourcing, we are now outsourcing company, so let's talk about a little bit outsourced and then outsource in Brazil. So outsourcing can be divided onshore, nearshore, and offshore. Onshore is when you outsource to a software development provided in your own country. Nearshore is when you outsource to firms 2 to 4 time zones away, possibly locating bordering countries to your own or just a short distance away. We do a lot of nearshore with countries in South America and Middle America, but our main market is the US market. We 0.5% what we produce goes to the USA, and 0.5% of we import comes from the USA also. And offshore are regions that are overseas or more than 4 time zones away, which would be for us in Brazil, Europe, or maybe Asia. Yes. So why outsource? 43% of US companies are outsourcing programs jobs. Why they do that? Because if they do that, they will have cost reduction, they will have access to the IT talents that is not available on their own company. You can free up the workforce in your company. You can make improvements of the company's business and of customer focuses. You accelerate the company digital transformation or reorganization. You have faster project development. It can be really faster because they are specialized in what they do. So they have the know-how to do, so it's going to be faster. And also have access to management expertise unavailable within the company and reduction of time to market. Yes, you can go down, Rosie, please. So this is the main 14 top outsourced companies in the world. And this table shows the cost to produce outsourced in these countries. So Brazil is the most expensive one. For example, for junior one, we have to pay 41 average $41 per hour. Yes, it's the most expensive, but we also have Mexico, Argentina, Colombia. China is one of the less expensive to produce. And here is Ukraine. Ukraine is a little bit less expensive than Brazil, but it's also is not the cheapest one. India and China, I would say, they are the cheapest ones to outsource.
And Vietnam.
And Vietnam.
And Vietnam, yes. So among the 14 top outsourcing countries, Brazil is the most expensive country for outsourcing. India holds the status of the most inexpensive outsourcing destination, but that's a problem because the quality of code produced in this location has been a concern for years. And combined with the language and time barrier, this has led to a growing number of companies opting for more expensive nearshore outsourcing locations, like in Brazil, for example, the USA, or South America, they do that. So approximate number of developers in the top 14 outsourced destinations. So Brazil is really huge. We have like a big population, so it's expected that we have like a big number of developers. We have 16,000 developers, followed by Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, China. Although China is also big and has more people living there than Brazil, they have almost half of developers that we have. And Ukraine is ahead of China in these numbers, so which is really good.
Yeah, also an interesting fact. So can you please, if we compare like the population of Brazil, China, and okay, India is a lot of head here, but look, Ukraine has got like 43,000 of developers, which is a lot for our population. Okay, Ukraine
Yes.
is also a big country compared to other European countries, but if you compare it to Brazil and China, it's like super small.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. What I'm leading to is that the Ukrainian market is really big and also growing. So the number is constantly changing and increasing because people continue to come to this market.
Yeah, if you divide, for example, the population, the total population,
Yeah.
and the population by developers, I would say that Ukraine and Romania and Poland, which are also small countries,
Yeah.
would be like in the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Brazil would be one of the last one, maybe.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you one question?
Yes.
The data is which year?
2016.
Oh, I see.
Yes, it was the most recent data that I could find.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talking about specifically outsourcing in Brazil, in 2015, Brazil exported 1.4 billion and imported 1.6 billion in software and IT services. So if you do the math here, you can see that we have a deficit. We import more than we export. And the Brazilian exports privilege the subcategory of services of project, development, adaptation and installation of customized applications. With the market size is around $331.7 billion. And Brazilian exports favors IT support services, possibly involving recurrent expenses related to prior acquisition of foreign solutions by Brazilian residents, which is $275.2 million. This is how is our balance between
130 тысяч.
export and importing. So as I mentioned before, our biggest market for exporting and importing is the USA, which represents 61% of our export and 52% of our import. And here is an interesting fact about Europe, because we don't export so many softwares to Europe. We just export 21.8%, but we import a lot from Europe. We import like 38% of our importation comes from these. So we have a balanced debt here of $362 million. For Latin America, we have a positive balance because we export more than we import. Also in Oceania, Asia, we also have like a negative balance. Africa, we also have a negative balance. And in total, we have a negative balance of around $200 million. Okay. So we can see from this data that the following stand out. The relative importance of the USA-Canada bloc to the Brazilian trade, accounting for more than half of the country's exports and imports of software and IT services. The relative high trade deficit of Brazil with the European bloc. The positive balance of trade between Brazil and Latin America and the Caribbean bloc, especially with countries with a still incipient IT industry, and the low relative share of commercial transactions with countries in Asia, Oceania, and Africa. It's almost nothing. We almost don't have a market there. And the low volume of Brazilian foreign trade involving software and IT service is still small compared to the other countries. So a brief forecast for the IT Brazilian market for this year, 2018, and for the next coming years. The Brazilian IT market had an expected growth of 2.5% in 2017, and it still is growing. Regardless, our economy is not growing so fast, but the IT market is growing really fast in Brazil. So data communication, mobile devices, security, cloud computing, IoT, infrastructure for cloud-based services, and investments in big data and analytics are also trends for the coming year. I mean, I guess it's not only for Brazil, but for the whole world. This is the
global trend.
Yes, the global trend. So the leading subsectors in Brazil. So new applications will be designed to run on the cloud with great attention to customer experience anywhere, anytime. Investments in security. Public cloud is expected to grow above 20% per year until the end of the decade. So challenges. Challenges about entering the Brazilian IT market. It's growing, but we also have a challenge for foreign companies. So the first one is the law. Laws implement regulations, provide a preference to Brazilian goods and services. Cybersecurity standards for government procurement have the potential to force the companies to use local data centers. So it can be a challenge because you have to have a data center in Brazil. And taxes and tariffs, foreign software and IT products can face significantly higher taxes in comparison to domestic products. So basically what the Brazilian government says, they put a lot of high taxes for importation because for the government they want to produce the domestic production of IT in Brazil. So this is why they do that. But it's not only about challenges, we still have opportunities there. So many foreign distributors have entered the market and have joined with Brazilian dealers, reseller channels partners. In most cases, to sell to the government, one must have a local presence or partner to be allowed to participate in the bid process if you want to sell to the government. And as the number of resellers, value-added resellers and agents grows and their portfolios expands, more distributors will adhere to local distribution models. So summarizing all this data, all this information, we can see that Brazil is a powerful and a major player in the outsourcing industry, especially in Americas, because it shares a similar culture and time zone with countries of this continent. Brazil has the largest amount of developers, around 16%. But Brazil has the highest billing rates that offshore software development companies charge. It is also very dependent on software importation. We saw that we have a debt balance. What is an opportunity for foreign companies which favors IT support service. The US and Canada bloc accounts for more than half of the country's exports and imports of software and IT services, and there is a relative high trade deficit of Brazil with the European bloc. Data communication, security, cloud computing, IoT, cloud-based, big data and analytics are also trends for the coming year. Foreign companies may still face market access challenges, including government procurement law, data protection and privacy, and taxes and tariffs which favor local companies. But in recent years, foreign distributors have entered the market and joined with the Brazilian dealer reseller channel partners to become more competitive. And a strong financial partner is a must for computer, hardware, software distributors in Brazil. So thanks for listening to me. This is my hometown.
Cool.
So I wanted to close with a sunset from beautiful horizon, which is the name of my city in Brazil.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions?